You are on the channel Topical. Today we are discussing this stunning news, the shooting in Washington. Just yesterday evening, Wednesday, 2 Israeli embassy staff members were tragically shot and killed outside the Capitol Jewish Museum in D.C.
It's truly shocking news. The victims have been identified as Jaron Lischinsky and Lynn Milgrim.
Yeah, and what's just incredibly sad, almost immediately striking, is the personal story emerging here.
I mean, the fact that they were a couple.
Exactly. We've learned they were together, and the Israeli ambassador to the U.S. shared this just heartbreaking detail.
About the engagement ring.
Yes, that Jaron had actually bought a ring, and he was planning to propose next week in Jerusalem.
Oh, that's just devastating. It adds such a layer of personal tragedy to an already horrific event.
It really does. Thankfully, it seems the suspect was apprehended very quickly, right there at the scene.
That's right. He's been identified. A 30-year-old man named Elias Rodriguez, reportedly from Chicago.
Okay, so what do we know about how this actually unfolded, the timeline?
Well, the shooting itself happened around 9:00 p.m. Wednesday night. Jaron and Sarah were leaving an event at the museum. It was hosted by the American Jewish Committee, the AJC.
Okay, and it doesn't sound like it was spontaneous.
No, not according to eyewitnesses. Reports suggest the suspect, Rodriguez, was actually seen pacing outside the museum before the shooting.
Eating outside?
Yeah. Then he apparently approached a group of 4 people, the victims were part of that group, and opened fire, hitting Jaron and Sarah.
And after he was taken into custody, there were some immediate indicators about possible motive.
Yes. Authorities have reported that while in custody, he was heard chanting, "Free, free Palestine."
Right. That's obviously significant.
It is. And furthermore, he also allegedly told investigators where the handgun used in the attack was located.
And they recovered it.
They did, yes. Promptly recovered based on that information.
So the reaction, I imagine it's been swift and strong.
Absolutely. Across the board, Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar immediately called it a horrific terrorist attack.
He didn't mince words.
No, and he explicitly linked it to what he called toxic anti-Semitic incitement. So, framing it very clearly from their perspective.
And the Israeli ambassador, Yechiel Leiter, the one who shared the detail about the proposal?
Yes, he confirmed they were embassy staff, really highlighting the human loss there.
Here in the U.S., what have we heard?
Well, former President Trump issued a statement. He said the killings were, in his words, obviously based on anti-Semitism.
Okay.
And he condemned hatred and radicalism, saying it has no place here.
And locally in D.C.
Mayor Muriel Bowser also put out a very strong condemnation, focused on violence, hate, terrorism, anti-Semitism, saying the city won't tolerate it.
Emphasizing community solidarity, too, I assume.
Yes, definitely. Stressing the need to stand together against hate.
What about the Israeli government itself? Prime Minister Netanyahu.
He expressed being shocked, deeply shocked by the murders. And importantly, he's instructed Israeli missions worldwide to increase their security.
That signals how seriously they're taking this threat.
It certainly does. And Danny Danon, Israel's ambassador to the UN, he described it as a depraved act of anti-Semitic terrorism.
So consistent language there. Terrorism and anti-Semitism.
Very consistent. And on the U.S. side, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem confirmed federal authorities are investigating.
We've also seen international reactions, right? Germany.
Yes, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz condemned it. And the foreign minister, Johann Wiedefel, expressed shock, noting that Jaron Lischinsky also held a German passport.
Another layer to this. And the AJC, who hosted the event.
They expressed devastation, understandably. Violence happening right outside their event.
Okay, let's shift to the investigation. The FBI is involved.
Heavily involved, yes. FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino stated that the early signs point towards a targeted attack.
Targeted. What makes them lean that way so early on?
Well, you look at things like, was the location chosen specifically? Were the victims chosen specifically because of who they were, their connection to the embassy, the suspect's alleged statements, that chanting?
The Free Palestine chant.
Exactly. That all feeds into the assessment of motive and whether it was targeted. The pacing beforehand also suggests planning, not randomness.
And Rodriguez is being questioned now.
Yes, he's being interviewed by D.C. Metro Police, and significantly, they're working with the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force.
Okay, so the terrorism angle is being actively pursued.
It seems so. The U.S. Attorney's Office is also reviewing the evidence now to decide on the specific federal charges.
It's worth noting, too, the response right at the scene was fast.
Very fast. Apparently, an FBI police officer was stationed nearby, heard the shots, responded immediately, and actually rendered aid to the victims.
Oh, well, good that someone was there so quickly, even in such awful circumstances.
Agreed. And officials also mentioned that the suspect tried to get into the museum after the shooting.
He tried to enter.
Yes, but security stopped him, so that was prevented. And importantly, authorities have stressed there's no active threat to the public now.
Okay, good. Let's just circle back to the victims for a moment. Jaron Lischinsky and Lynn Milgrim. What were their roles?
Jaron was a researcher in the political department of the embassy. Sarah organized U.S. missions to Israel.
So definitely embassy staff involved in its work, even if not holding formal diplomat titles.
Correct. They were part of the embassy team. It's also been mentioned that the U.S. embassy was contacted to see if either held dual Israeli-American citizenship.
Do we know yet?
That information is apparently still pending, or at least not publicly confirmed yet.
Given all this, security experts are starting to weigh in. One, Richard Weitz, called it a well-planned assassination. That's strong language.
It is. And that assessment likely comes from piecing together the suspect's actions, the waiting outside, the specific targeting of people leaving that particular event, the location itself near the museum, the victim's known connection to the embassy.
It paints a picture of intent.
It does. It suggests someone knew who might be there, or at least knew the significance of the location and event, and waited.
Weitz also brought up an interesting point about security levels.
Yeah, the difference between, say, an ambassador who gets a full security detail and other embassy staff who might not.
Lower-level staffers, researchers, organizers, they generally don't have personal security.
Typically, no, not in the same way. And this attack really throws that into sharp relief. It raises immediate questions about potential vulnerabilities.
So you'd expect embassies, not just Israel's perhaps, to review their procedures.
I would think so, yes. This will likely prompt a serious reevaluation of security protocols for all personnel, not just the top diplomats. Weitz also mentioned, looking into potential foreign connections for the suspect.
Any sign of that yet?
No, he was clear there's no indication of that at this stage. But it's a question investigators will surely explore.
Okay, so let's try to summarize where we are. 2 Israeli embassy staff, Jaron Lischinsky and Lynn Milgrim, a couple about to be engaged, murdered in D.C.
Shot outside the Capitol Jewish Museum after an event.
A suspect, Elias Rodriguez, is in custody. He reportedly made anti-Israel statements,
Leading to widespread condemnation, labeling it potential terrorism, and an act of anti-Semitism from U.S., Israeli, and other international leaders.
A major investigation is underway involving the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force, looking strongly at this being a targeted attack.
And amidst all the political and security dimensions, we have this profound, almost unbearable personal tragedy of this young couple.
Absolutely. And as a direct result, Israel is looking at boosting security for its missions globally.
It's a deeply disturbing incident. It really underscores the ongoing threat of targeted violence and the very real concerns about rising anti-Semitism and politically motivated attacks worldwide.
Yeah, it forces you to think about the safety of people simply doing their jobs for their country and the wider implications for diplomacy, for security, when something like this can happen.
Indeed. It raises serious questions about how we protect those who serve in these roles and how nations interact when facing such threats.
It leaves you, the listener, to really consider those broader implications about targeted violence, about anti-Semitism, and what this means for safety and international relations going forward.